basically. After that, it took me a few months, but in early 1972, then I joined the Sydney Temple there, and I got my first chance to see Prabhupada in April. He arrived on April the 1st, and you know, it was a very exciting time. We'd never seen Prabhupada before, and it was Prabhupada's second visit to Australia. So from that, Prabhupada would visit Australia every year for, he did it from 71 through 76. He would come for 1 week and either go to Sydney or Melbourne. So that was it, you know, we got to see Prabhupada 1 week a year, and that was enough to give you some, you know, it would give you enough juice so that, you know, it would keep you going the whole rest of the year. So when we saw Prabhupada, then it was always in a very formal setting. You know, we'd see him on the dasa, of course, giving his lectures. And if you were really lucky, you could go on a morning walk, one morning walk. You know, they didn't want all the devotees going every day, so they would pick, you know, a certain group. So you get one morning walk, and then, because in the West, Prabhupada didn't used to give open darshans that much. He did in some places, but not in every place. So in Australia, at least, we used to have, there'd be one open darshan, usually on the last day that Prabhupada visited. Everybody was allowed to come into his room. So that was it. That was the way that we saw Prabhupada in a very kind of formal way. And in fact, I remember after Prabhupada's disappearance, I had gone to New York as the GBC in 1982, and I thought it would be nice, you know, to read my diary to the devotees there, because in those days I wasn't working on it. I had the original notes, that was it. And there was no folio, you know, there was no immediate access to all the rest of Prabhupada's works or whatever. So I thought it would be nice to give the devotees, you know, more insight into Prabhupada's activities, more kind of intimate look. And when I started reading it, I had one of the senior devotees, Srila Prabhupada. He came up to me afterwards and he said, you know, when you were reading from your diary, he said, I found that really disturbing. I was surprised. I said, disturbing? Why? He said, well, he said, I only ever saw Prabhupada on the Vyasa. So he said, now hearing about, you know, everything that's going on in his room and this and that, he said, I just found it very difficult to fit that in with the image that I've always had, you know, of Prabhupada, you know, as the kind of Mahabhagavad, you know, guru. And now, you know, these more intimate activities, he said, you know, it's just, I don't know how to relate to that. Of course, later on he appreciated it, and in fact Sri Ram was one of the devotees that I asked to review the first manuscript of the first volume of my book in 1992, because in those days, if you wanted to sell, you know, a book other than Prabhupada's in any ISKCON temple, it had to be approved by what was called the ISKCON Book Review Board. So Sri Ram was on that board, and I got him to read through the manuscript, and he loved it. So I kind of had a change after that. But still, the point that I'm making is that we have this impression of Prabhupada, you know, in a very, very formal way. So when you actually got into Prabhupada's rooms, when you were living with him, it was quite different in some respects. Because the formality of the guru-disciple relationship is always there. But, you know, when you were on his party, you were in a much more intimate situation. And there was, you know, more of a kind of relaxed atmosphere a lot of the time. Prabhupada would sit and, you know, he'd be relaxing back, he would chit-chat, you know, small talk, Krishna conscious small talk. But, you know, sometimes he'd give you little insights into his previous life before ISKCON, or when he was a child, you know, when he was trying to preach, you know, when he left his family in the 50s and early 60s. And sometimes he would joke a little bit, tell funny stories about Gopal Ban or whatever. So anyway, it was just, you know, a much more, it was a different just a different atmosphere in a lot of ways. So this particular day then, December the 2nd, when I was 75, when I was formally made Prabhupada's full-time servant, I had a very striking realization, just being in Prabhupada's rooms with him, seeing him relaxing and everything. And I just got this very powerful realization about Prabhupada's personality. So I wrote that down. It's extremely pleasurable to be with Srila Prabhupada during these quiet moments. He's gentle and mild in his manner, and completely fixed and steady in his devotion to Krishna. He has tremendous strength and force, but is devoid of passion. His presence is totally dominating, without being at all domineering. His mind is steady and his senses are controlled effortlessly. His intelligence is perfectly clear, and he knows how to act and how others should act in every situation. His presence then makes spiritual life a reality. Watching him today, it struck me that he is a living, breathing Bhagavatam. Whatever description of Krishna consciousness is in his books, he himself is that. Reading his books brings gradual realization, but what is understood in perhaps several lifetimes of study is revealed on a second-to-second, minute-to-minute and day-to-day basis in Prabhupada's personal association. I have therefore resolved within myself to learn as much as I can while I have this matchless opportunity to observe him closely. Simply watching Prabhupada in his daily activities, how he deals with the devotees, how he responds to different situations, how he preaches, how he continually pushes forward the movement of Lord Chaitanya, how absolutely every facet of his being is fully Krishna conscious. It's quite feasible to understand the full import of the sacred scriptures. By studying and preaching, one may make steady advancement. But at least for me, although I have full faith in Krishna consciousness, many ideas and principles are still only intellectually perceived, but not yet fully realized. But by observing Srila Prabhupada, I can see that they're a natural, integral part of his very being. So that was a very strong realization right at the first day there. Here is the Bhagavatam. We read the Bhagavatam, so many books, so many purports, thousands of pages, and so many different things to absorb and learn about. But here it all is in one personality, Srila Prabhupada. And I realized if I just watch Srila Prabhupada, I'm going to understand what Krishna consciousness is. Immediately. It'll all just be manifest from one day to the next. So, apart from that then, Prabhupada himself once spoke when I was with him on this principle of the living Bhagavatam. It was an interesting meeting that he had with Professor Francois Chenique. Professor Chenique was in some university in Paris, and he had written a very favourable review of Prabhupada's French Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita tel Kal. And we had gone to New Mayapur after being here in London. We went there, I think, at the end of end of July in 1976. Prabhupada had been at the manor for a few days. Then, whilst he was there, Bhagavan Prabhu and Prataputra Swami, they'd arrived from France and they brought with them the very first French edition of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Part 1. Prabhupada liked it very much. Then when we went to France, now this Professor Chenique, he saw the new Bhagavatam and he was very excited by that. He really liked it and he wanted it to be used in the universities. He was using already Prabhupada's books in his courses. So the devotees offered him the opportunity to come and meet with Srila Prabhupada, which he eagerly accepted. So on August the 5th then, he came out to New Mayapur. He was actually on his way to a Buddhist retreat. It was a bit, by his own admission, he was more of an impersonalist. But still, he was very respectful to the devotees when he came in. He had his daughter with him actually also. And when he came in, he was wearing a dhoti. He had japamala around his neck, and he had tilak on as well. So Prabhupada liked that very much. Yeah, he was just respectful. So anyway, the preliminary introduction's done. Professor Shanik said that he was keen to see Prabhupada's Bhagavatam come into use. There's only one other French translation of it done during the 1800s, and that has no commentary. Yet at the university level, he said, the French are meticulous about maintaining the grammatical standards of their language. He was politely concerned that our translations should not smell of English, as he put it. This is the French, right? Completely paranoid about the anglicisation of their language. He was politely concerned. He felt that since our books are translated from the English, the French literary expression is not always exactly correct, describing French as a more compact language than English. He wondered whether it might not be better to translate directly from the Sanskrit into French. Prabhupada was not very concerned. While acknowledging that if possible improvements could be made to future editions, he explained that as yet no French devotee had become a Sanskritist. But besides that, he said it is not a question of scholarship. The translator must be a realized soul. He said that although there are many Sanskrit scholars in India, they cannot understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. He must be French, expert in language, at the same time a devotee, Prabhupada told him. Then he can explain. Otherwise, no. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's secretary, Srila Damodar, he asked, Bhagavat Padagir, Bhagavat Stani. You go and study the Bhagavad from the Bhagavad. So I have discussed this in the beginning of the translation of the Bhagavad. So Bhagavad, that is the limit of education. Vidya Bhagavata Vidhi. One has to study and take education up to the Bhagavatam. That is, if one understands the Srimad Bhagavatam, then he has finished his education. The professor assured Prabhupada that he wasn't in any way criticizing, but he was concerned that Prabhupada got the widest possible audience. He felt that an improvement in the way that the French editions were written would ensure that. Prabhupada appreciated his concern, but he continued to stress his point. That is from scholarship point of view, but our point is that this Bhagavad must be presented by the Bhagavad, and there is not much scholarship required. Just like Bhagavad begins with the words Janmadhyasya Jata. So this Sanskrit word means that the absolute truth is that from where everything emanates. Now, the absolute truth is further explained. Anvayadi taratascha abhigyasvarat. The absolute truth is aware of everything, directly and indirectly, of all of this creation. So in this way, if you step-by-step study, it is not very difficult so far the word meanings are concerned, but it is a question of realization. Unless one is realized, he cannot explain properly. That is the secret. Therefore, we have given the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in our Bhagavatam because he is the living Bhagavatam. So that's nice. Prabhupada used that phrase in reference to Lord Chaitanya. That he displayed practically what it means to be fully Krishna conscious. That's what the Bhagavatam is all about, becoming Krishna conscious. And similarly, Prabhupada also. Yeah, if we didn't have Prabhupada's example, practical example, there wouldn't be a Krishna consciousness movement. Even if his books had come to the West, that's the book Bhagavad. And in fact, Prabhupada's books did precede him to the West. When Prabhupada arrived in Butler, in Pennsylvania, then he got some contact with a professor at some university in Pennsylvania. So he went there. The man invited him to speak to his class. And Prabhupada, he'd come with 200 sets of his first canto in 3 parts. So he was going to sell his books to this university, and they already had them. And there were several other places in New York when Prabhupada got there, they already had Prabhupada's books. Somehow or another, some distributor had picked them up, sold them to the American Library or some organization in Delhi, American. and they had shipped 17 sets out to America. So, Prabhupada's books had gone ahead. But if we'd have only had Prabhupada's books, what would we have figured out from there? Would we have figured out the four regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds, living an ordered, structured daily life as devotees from Mangalati, through the taking rest? Would there have been any temples open? Would there have been any deity worship? Nothing. We wouldn't have had anything. We would have understood some theory, that's all. But actually living the life of a devotee, what would we have, understood, unless Prabhupada was personally present to show us those things? So that's the living Bhagavatam. So that was Srila Prabhupada. All the aspects of devotional service were manifest by his personal presence. So again, one of the occasion when Prabhupada talked about the book and the personality Bhagavatam, that was on May the 7th in 1976. Prabhupada was in Honolulu. So Prabhupada is continuing to read the repetitive chanting of the Sanskrit at the start of the class himself. Skipping slokas 3 to 5, he read out the morning's verse from Canto 6, Chapter 1, Verse 6, which describes Shukadeva Goswami as being Mahabhaga. So here, Sukadeva Goswami is addressed as Mahabhaga. Maha means great, and Bhaga means fortunate. Because he is very fortunate, he is describing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Again, Bhagavatam, the same word, Bhaga, that comes. Bhagavat. Vat, this word, is used when the meaning is possessing. So, Asjarate Vatu. Bhagavan, Bhagavan, and Bhagavat. Bhagavat means one who has the power to possess the Supreme Lord. No, it's one who has the power to possess the Supreme Lord. That's the Bhagavat. He is called Bhagavat. There are two kinds of Bhagavat. One is the Grantha Bhagavat book, and one is the person Bhagavat. A devotee, he is called Bhagavat, and the book in which the pastimes or the characteristics of Bhagavan is described, that is called Bhagavat. So, this is Srimad Bhagavat. Shri means beauty. Again, Vat. Bhagavat, Shrivat. Shri means very beautiful. So in every sloka you will find very, very beautiful. 5,000 years ago these verses were written. There is no comparison. Nobody can write such verses even up to date. It was written by Vyasadeva, Vedavyas. As we sat in the small but crowded temple room listening attentively to his potent lecture, it made me realize that as a Mahabhagavat devotee, Srila Prabhupada is also incomparable. Nobody is able to give such astute insights into everyday life and such lucid explanations of the Vedic literature as he. He is truly the representative of Srila Vyasadeva, and we neophytes are Mahabhaga to be daily sitting at his lotus feet. So that was a nice thing. Bhagavat, you possess Bhaga, the Supreme Lord. So the book possesses the Lord, and the devotee possesses the Lord also. This is the Bhagavat. Okay, so anyway, that's a bit of an introduction, just to kind of set the scene. Now, normally what I do is I read out to the devotees all the different topics and then ask them to choose which one they want me to speak on. I'm not going to do that today. I thought it would be nice if we, because normally what happens is everybody wants either chanting, books, or prasadam. I don't mind reading, doing that. Like repeating the same seminars again and again. But there's other aspects which it's nice to talk about. So I thought at least for the next few days we'll talk about some of the other ones. And then maybe on Sunday we can, when there's all the devotees in there, we can let everybody choose which one they want to talk about, they want to hear about. But Jai Shri Bhagavan Ki. So I thought it would be nice to look at on deities, temples, and just worship. Yeah, because that's one of our main features of the movement. Prabhupada's installation of deities, unheard of in the West before Prabhupada came. Or even if there were a few Hindu organizations, their idea of worshipping the deities is a lot different from what Prabhupada gave us. So, this Prabhupada mentioned, this is one of the duties of the spiritual master, is to engage his disciples in worship of the deity. Sri Vigrahara, Dhananijanana, Sringara Mandira Majanada. So on March the 12th in 1976, Prabhupada was in Mayapur. We'd gone there in mid-January. We were in Mayapur for just over 2 months for the Gaur Purnima festival. So this was a couple of days before Gaur Purnima in 76. So during class, Prabhupada explained to his hundreds of eager followers, because the festival had begun. There were about 500 devotees from the West there. And he explained the benefits of deity worship. He compared it to the process of yogic meditation, by which one tries to see the Lord within the heart. You may practice this hatha yoga or gymnastic yoga for many, many births, he said. You cannot see Krishna. Krishna can be seen when you smear with love ointment on your eyes, and that is possible through bhakti. Therefore, why not practice bhakti yoga from the beginning if you want to see Krishna? Krishna says, he is first-class yogi who is always seeing Krishna within the heart. So, is it a very difficult task? In our bhakti yoga, we teach this art of seeing Krishna within the core of the heart in 1 minute. It is so simple. You are seeing Krishna here. You must have this impression. And then try to keep that impression within your heart always. Then you become a first-class yogi. Why so much gymnastic and pressing the nose? No, you take directly. If you're engaged 24 hours in the service of the deity, then you cannot see except the deity. So this bhakti yoga process is so simple. Therefore, the Kanishta Adhikari, those who are neophyte, they must take to deity worship. But deity worship, or by deity worship, is elevated to the position of seeing the Lord within the heart. So this is a very important thing. You can see, here he is, here. But you have no knowledge, or even if you have knowledge, you are not competent to see him. But if you practice deity worship, so therefore it is the duty of the Guru to engage the neophyte devotee always in deity worship. Because, yoga now, even more than ever before, has become a huge industry. You go to all the Western countries now, everybody's getting into yoga. It's become, the latest fad. It's always been going on, at least 30, 40 years, but now there's millions of people that do yoga. But what's the purpose of it? Nobody knows. You ask any of them, they haven't a clue, apart from keeping fit, that's it. It's not yoga actually, it's just another form of exercise. And, it's just based on hatha yogic ideas, but it's not actually yoga, it's just exercise. So the real business, of course, is to see Krishna. That's the whole name of yoga. Prabhupada said, I give you that in 1 minute. Right, here's Krishna, you see it, keep that impression. Bas. Krishna's in your heart. So again, on 23rd of February 1976, Prabhupada was in Mayapur. And during his class this morning, Prabhupada described the important role the temple plays in helping people to advance in spiritual life by Agyata Sukriti, or unknown pious activity. Sukriti means by the way by which one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is called Sukriti, Agyata Sukriti. So, this temple means to give the chance to the people in general, Agyata Sukriti. Anyone who comes to this temple where the deity is there, and even by imitating others, if one offers obeisances to the Lord, that is taken into account. That is not useless, because this is Krishna's desire. He gives these 4 principles. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer obeisances. So Lord, these 4 principles will deliver you from this bondage of material existence. And without any doubt, you'll come back to me. So that opportunity. If people just come, they imitate the devotees even, they get the same benefit, Agyata Sukriti, unknowingly, but still they get the benefit. So Prabhupada, his plan for opening up the temples was twofold in one sense. One was for the benefit of the devotees that are living there, to maintain the levels of purity, and at the same time also to give the opportunity for outsiders. If they just come, it doesn't matter what they know or don't know, but if they see the deity, if they feel any respect, even if they don't bow down, but if they just think this is nice. I remember when my mother came to see me for the first time after I'd become a devotee, because I joined in Sydney. My parents were living in Scunthorpe, so I didn't see them until after 5 years. I came back with Prabhupada in 1976. So they came to see me at the manor, and when we went into the temple room, my mother was saying, "Oh, this is so beautiful, this is so nice," she was looking at the altar. She hadn't a clue what she was looking at. Right? This is Krishna or Radha or whatever. But she just thought it was very beautiful. So she gets the benefit, that's all. Anybody, if they just appreciate some aspect of Krishna consciousness. So that's one feature of having deity worship. People come and immediately get some appreciation. So again, on May the 3rd, 1976, Prabhupada was in Honolulu. So the other day he said, "I have explained why Guru is accepted as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Acharya Vishnu Shiladya Gurushu Naramatiya Naraki." If anybody thinks that the Archa Vigraha, the deities, has been made of stone, made of earth, or something material, and Guru, the spiritual master, is an ordinary man, so this is forbidden. Why is Guru to be considered? Chakshadhari Twaina Samasta Shastriya. Exactly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That reason is given there. The reason is that he's giving Krishna knowledge. Therefore he's as good as Krishna. Even though his family member or his friend is thinking, "Oh, he has now become a guru." So still he should be considered the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That reason is also given there, that even Krishna was taken as an ordinary man. But does it mean that he's become an ordinary man? So similarly, our movement, it may appear just like any other movement, but because the movement is giving Krishna, so it is as good as Krishna. This is the philosophy. Advaya Gyana. It appears to others, oh, there are so many movements. Or the hippies, they've simply taken another shape. But it is not that. It is actually Krishna. So long as it adheres to the principles as enjoined, as we have accepted. Otherwise, then it is another movement. This same man is Guru as long as he gives real knowledge of Krishna. And the same man is ordinary man as soon as he cannot give that. So the same thing, just like a stone doll. When it is worshipped according to the regulative principle, Krishna, and the same doll kept in the sculptor's showroom, then it is stone. So if we keep our movement pure, then we are as strong as Krishna. And as soon as we deviate from it, immediately ordinary. So this is the secret. Now it is up to us how we will keep it pure. Then no enemy can kill us. Nobody can kill. So that purity is wanted, and then it will be success. You follow the rules and regulations, worship the deity, chant Hare Krishna mantra as we have given. Then you remain as strong as Krishna. And if we manufacture some ideas, then it is God. Krishna cannot be manufactured. Krishna is Krishna. You cannot manufacture another competitor for Krishna. That is not the way. Then it will be failure. So that is my request, that this movement is actually the real movement to raise the human society. And if we create a faction, then the movement will be less strong and will not act very nicely. Because the context there was a little bit, we were in Hawaii, and that was where the first deviant group from ISKCON formed, first split-off group. That was Siddhartha and his followers. They were in Hawaii and New Zealand and Australia. So they kind of left ISKCON in about late 73. So they were still keeping in touch with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada kept on encouraging them because they were his disciples. But he didn't really like it that they weren't willing to, work constructively and cooperatively with his ISKCON movement. So I was making that point there that if you create a faction, then the movement will be less strong and it will not act very nicely. Because faction means that you have your own idea. Prabhupada had given all the ideas, all the standards that he wanted. Now if somebody doesn't want to be part of that, if he wants to go off and do his own idea, then what is he saying? He's saying that he doesn't accept Prabhupada's standards and he wants to make standards of his own. So then, the same strength will not be there. That was Prabhupada's point. So that there was a lot of discussion centered around this particular group actually. And Prabhupada also, he made the point quite a few times to us, that the maintenance of a temple means that it's something that you can't argue about. Yeah? You can argue about lots of things, different methods for preaching and book distribution and this and that. But you can't argue about the standards for deity worship. It's fixed for everybody and that's it. So Prabhupada, he mentioned this in the letter to the GBC, again when we were in Hawaii. This was on May the 18th. It had some complaint from the local temple president. He was in an argument with his GBC. So the end result was that the temple president came to see Prabhupada to complain. And it was Prabhupada that had to, solve the problem. Anyway, he wasn't very happy that he had to get drawn into this particular argument. So in the evening he spoke for a long time how it would be very difficult to finish the Srimad Bhagavatam if so many management problems continued to arise. He dictated a general letter to all the GBC members, asking them to become more responsible and to relieve him of managerial burdens. He compared his ISKCON movement to the British Empire, saying that it was actually more extensive because we have not yet finished our expansion. He wants the growth to continue, but he also wants to be given the opportunity to complete his translation work. I must now remind you that I have to complete the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the greatest contribution. Our books have given us a respectable position. People have no faith in this church or temple worship. Those days are gone. Of course, we have to keep our spirits high. Simply intellectualism will not do. There must be practical purification. As he goes on to talk more about the Bhagavatam there, but the point there is that, as he says, although people are not that interested in going to the temple or to the church anymore, still we can't do things just on the basis of intellectualism. There has to be, as he said, practical purification. But that's the purpose of the temple, to engage in practical activities for the pleasure of the deity, rather than just up in the mind. We have to do things to demonstrate our understanding of Krishna consciousness. So, and to, as he says, keep our spirits high. Come together, chant together, worship together, see the deities, do the festivals. All of that keeps your spirits very high. So again, on this point about maintaining purity through temple worship. Again, we were in Honolulu, May the 5th. Prabhupada was having a conversation with Bhagavatam Prabhu and others about Siddhartha's group. And one of their main contentious points why they left ISKCON was because they were saying, because one of the main things was that they didn't like the fact that we were going around selling books every day. Because we would go out and sell books, it was very controversial. You get a lot of adverse publicity, people would complain, etc., etc. So these people, it was their idea that we shouldn't do that because it disturbed people. If people are disturbed, then it's wrong. Because Prabhupada counted that quite extensively. But that was one of the main complaints. The other one was that they didn't want to live in the temple. Not only didn't they want to do book distribution, but they also didn't want to live in the temple. But the real reason they didn't want to live in the temple was because you have to get up in the morning and, chant your rounds, follow the principles, and worship the deity. So Mangalarti, all the whole process. So they didn't like that. So they took shelter of this idea that deity worship is just for neophytes. If you're more advanced, you don't need to worship the deity. Yeah? You can just chant Hare Krishna. So the whole thing was that we just chant Hare Krishna. Because they weren't doing anything else, that's the fact. Yeah, they weren't doing any deity worship, but they weren't following the principles either. So although they say deity worship was just for the neophytes, Prabhupada knew very well what the real reason was why they didn't want to live in the temples, because they couldn't handle the regulated life of the devotee. So anyway, there'd been a long talk about book distribution, where Prabhupada refuted this idea that just because it disturbs people that you shouldn't do it. He said it doesn't matter, you do it to please your spiritual master, that's all. And right at the very end, he added another interesting comment as a punchline. He said, besides that, if you do not take to deity worship, then you shall remain unclean. That is a fact. So again, if you don't have a standard to live up to, purity, then you just become a malacha again, that's all. Now the question of whether or not Siddhaswrupa and Ananda Maharaj and his group are actually doing what Prabhupada wants has been a point of considerable confusion, especially here in Hawaii, where he has his main base. One devotee who's gone off to join Siddhaswrupa has now returned to the temple for Prabhupada's visit. He asked me if he could speak directly to His Divine Grace to free his mind from the confusion that he was feeling. Prabhupada consented and he saw him in the evening. Once again, Prabhupada explicitly stated the standard that he wanted and what he required for one to be considered his disciple. So I wish that we should combinedly work together very vigorously, just like the women quarrelling between themselves. So what is this? You keep some women together and they'll fight. Prabhupada knew that. The children together, they'll fight. So dogs together, they'll fight. Same men, why will they fight? But our cause is the common thing, how to push on Krishna consciousness. That soberness must be there. I can give you points, instructions, but you'll have to put it into shape. Otherwise, how will it be possible? Guru Kripa Maharaj suggested that the strife had arisen because of a difference of opinion on how to spread Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada replied that there is a formula, and if someone is not following that, then he can suggest how to rectify it. But the point was to work cooperatively. Well, the thing is, they say that they don't want to cooperate with the ISKCON movement, I told them. So why? Prabhupada asked. Well, nobody knows, I said, they just don't want to mix. So then you can settle up everything by sitting together. Why should there be any differences? Prabhupada asked. So having served in Australia during the period when Siddha's group had first factioned off, and from our recent visit to Auckland, I offered my own observations. Just like in New Zealand, originally they split from ISKCON. Now gradually you're bringing them back to the same standard again. Now you are encouraging them to build a temple and install deities. That means that they have to come up to the required standard, Brahminical standard again. So why was there any need for them to go away in the first place? But still they won't cooperate. They have to do it their own way, and that's the problem. So then you go and talk with them, Prabhupada said. Go and talk with them. So that was, they'd gone off with all these rationales why they didn't want to stay in temples, etc. But then by 1976, Prabhupada was already telling them, now, if you don't want to live in our temples, that's fine, but then build your own temple. But you must have a temple and install the deity and worship them properly and come up to the Brahminical standards. And in fact, Tusta Krishna Swami, who was Siddha's right-hand man, and he ran their operations in New Zealand and Australia, he had come to see Prabhupada whilst Prabhupada was in Melbourne, requesting a Gayatri mantra tape from Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada, it was another one of those revolutionary things that Prabhupada did, giving people initiation through the mail. It had never been done before Srila Prabhupada. So first and second initiations was all done by correspondence. So every temple had a tape recording of Srila Prabhupada chanting the Gayatri mantra word for word. And then if Prabhupada wasn't personally there, then the new initiate, they would sit and they would listen to the tape. And then they would hear Prabhupada say the word, and then they'd say the word. So Tusta Krishna didn't have a copy of that tape, because nobody would give him it. So he thought, I'll go straight to Prabhupada and get it straight from Prabhupada. He was sure Prabhupada will immediately agree, because Prabhupada had been accepting his recommendations of people for initiation. He used to write to Prabhupada, even though he'd left ISKCON. And Prabhupada would accept whoever he recommended. But when he asked for the Gayatri mantra tape, Prabhupada refused. And he told him, he said, no, he said, if you don't have deities, then why do you need Brahmins? He said, first initiation, that's all right, but if you want to have give Brahman initiation, then you have to have a proper temple and start worshipping the deity. So Tusta actually started to do that. They started to construct a temple in 1976. And we'll see there's some correspondence that deals with that a bit later on in the seminar here. Anyway, so the point was that Prabhupada was again bringing them, even though they'd gone off for a while, he was again bringing them back to exactly the same standard again. So May the 9th, 1976, over the last few days, Prabhupada has been requesting the temple leaders here in Honolulu to construct a new temple building on the side of our land. Despite Siddha's attitude, Srila Prabhupada attempted to encourage him to participate in the new project. So we had there's a big house in Hawaii, that's still the temple, but on the side of the house there was a big grassy area, and Prabhupada said we could construct a big temple, proper temple, on that area. So he was telling Guru Kripa Maharaj, and Sukadeva was the temple president at that time, that they should begin that work. Siddha Swarup had come to visit with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was telling him, so why don't you also help out and build this temple? It's for Krishna, for the Panchatattva deities that we had there. He said whatever differences existed could be resolved only on the common platform of chanting the holy names of the Lord. But Siddha Swarup merely invented one excuse after another why he could not participate. Later, along with Prabhupada, I asked Prabhupada about book distribution and deity worship. I asked why, if the deity worship was the process for self-realization in the last yuga, why do we have it now? Wasn't Sankirtan sufficient? Because in Treta Yuga, that's worship of the deities, that means for purification. Prabhupada said that he introduced the worship of the deity because, while there may arise differences of opinion about the distribution of books, on the point of deity worship, there was only one standard on which all must agree. This would therefore maintain the purity of the movement. So, two paths, Bhagavat Vidi and Archana Vidi. You worship the deity and you go out and preach, like that. But Prabhupada knew that this is the standard nobody can argue with. You can fight about what's the best way to preach and distribute books. But you can't fight about how to worship Krishna. There's standards are given, and that's it. And if you maintain those, then it keeps a certain level of purity there, and then that means that it will lessen the chance for disagreements and arguments. It just provides some unity. So, visiting temples then Prabhupada was very, very regular. Every temple that he went to, he would always observe the morning program. What became our morning program. Of course, Prabhupada didn't used to go to Mangalati. he insisted that the devotees must go to Mangalati every day, but for he himself, he was up all night long anyway. And when the devotees went for Mangalati, that was usually when Prabhupada started to kind of wind down from doing his translation work on the Bhagavatam. So around about 4:30, 5 o'clock, he would just finish up, and then he would relax for a half hour or so, and then he would get washed up and ready for his morning walk. But he wanted the devotees, of course, to go to Mangalati every day. And then after his morning walk, then Prabhupada would come in, and every single day, unless he was really seriously ill, Prabhupada would come into the temple, he would greet the deities, he would receive Guru Puja, and he would give his Bhagavatam class. And that was consistent. It was, no break from that. Didn't matter, jet lag or anything. Because one thing about Prabhupada was that he was kind of transcendental to jet lag. I remember when we travelled from India to Australia and then over to New Zealand, Fiji, Hawaii, like this. And the first few days I was always really wiped out, just from the jet lag. But Prabhupada would just immediately drop straight into his regular routine, and it just never seemed to affect him at all. So, every day he would be out, he would be there immediately for greeting the deities and, doing the program. So, April the 3rd, 1976 in Vrindavan, each morning Prabhupada displays great devotion and love, affectionately looking upon the deities' divine forms at darshan time. He stands surrounded by his devotees as the Govindam prayers boom over the sound system. The curtains open, and he looks intently for a few seconds. Then he gets down and fully prostrates himself in obeisance to their lordships, Sri Sri Gaura. Then he pushes himself back up on his knees, again touches his head to the floor, and then stands erect. Then he repeats the same procedure at the altar of Krishna and Balaram. Then finally, again before Sri Sri Radha Sundar, who must be the most beautiful deities in all of ISKCON. After sipping a little Charanamrita, he turns to walk back across the temple room floor to the Vyasasana. As he crosses the front of each altar, he does a clockwise 360-degree pirouette. So as Prabhupada walked back across the front of the altars, he would spin on the spot and do a circumambulation, on the spot. So then in his class, Prabhupada vividly explained why we worship deities and how the same mood of devotion should be applied to everything that we do. He recalled a recent challenge by a man in Delhi. The man had asked Srila Prabhupada that if God is everywhere, what is the use of going to a temple? Prabhupada reversed the logic. If God is everywhere, why not go to the temple? He's certainly there also. He told us it's like electricity. Electrical energy is everywhere, but wiring and the switch enable us to utilize it. Similarly, he said, Krishna is everywhere, and you can worship Krishna from anything. Everybody knows this deity is made of stone. So the floor, the marble, that is black and white marble. And so the deity is also black and white. Everybody knows. But why you see the black and white deity in this temple and gather together and offer prayers? Is it the same marble of the ground, black and white? So that means you are seeing in a different position. So this is love of Krishna. Those who haven't got the love, they are seeing that, the same stone on the floor and the same stone in the deity. What is it that these foolish men are worshipping? They say that. I can worship this stone also. No. Krishna says, yes, the stone on the floor, that I am, but I am not present there. This is called a Chincha Veda Veda. They think that if Krishna has spread himself in everything, then he has lost himself. He has no more form. So this is a material calculation. These foolish persons, they do not know. I've several times given you the example. You take a big piece of paper and you make it into small pieces and throw it in the air. So the big sheet is no longer existing. It is finished. So their calculation is like that. That if Krishna is all-pervasive, then where is his form? His form is finished. But that is nonsense. This is Krishna Maya Tatamidam Sarvam. I am spread everywhere, all pervasive, but in my person I am not there. But a devotee should understand that Krishna is on the throne and Krishna is on the floor. Therefore we should be very careful to take care of the floor, to take care of the throne, to take care of the flower, to take care of the dishes. Everything you should worship like Krishna. You cannot neglect anything. It's interesting because he's just saying exactly the opposite. So first of all he's saying the stone on the floor and the stone of the deity, two different things. Here's Krishna, but he's not here. Then he's saying, but for a devotee, here's Krishna and here. Krishna sees, a devotee sees Krishna in everything. Sri Vigrahara Dhananichanada Sringaratan Mandira Majanada. Everything is one. You cannot say Krishna is here sitting, I can neglect this floor. That is foolishness. You should take as much care to worship the deity, to decorate the deity, as to keep the temple very, very clean. That is Krishna consciousness. You cannot say, oh, he's working in the garden, therefore he is inferior. I am working directly on Krishna's altar. No, the person who works in the garden, Krishna's garden. So he should be as careful as the man who is worshipping the deity in the temple. That is wanted. He concluded by saying that we should be very careful to keep this understanding. Just like the devotee who takes the dust of Vrindavan on his head. This is the proper mood, because Vrindavan dust is Krishna. If we remember that every atom is Krishna, then our Krishna consciousness will be very, very strong and firmly established. Likewise, he said the great sky is also Krishna. So Krishna can be everywhere in his all-pervasive form, or he can appear in the small form of the deity just to accept our service. Of course, this is the vision of the very advanced devotee, he told us, and we should not imitate. But this is the ideal platform to aim for. So that, seeing Krishna everywhere, I remember when I first joined the temple in Sydney in 1972, one of the senior devotees there was Upendra Prabhu, because Upendra was Prabhupada's personal servant in the last 6 months that he was with us, and he was Prabhupada's personal servant several times before that, in 1967 and again in 1975. So Upendra helped to open up the Australian Yatra. He'd gone there in 1969, just after Bali Madan, and the two of them, they started the preaching work in Australia. So he was still in the temple when I joined in early 72, and he used to tell us lots of stories, about his personal experiences with Prabhupada. So one of the things that he used to tell us was how he was on a morning walk one time, and he had asked Prabhupada that